Hello, this is the Helm Dev meeting, April 24th, 2025. Um, uh, it's just since I have it in my clipboard already, here are the notes and today's meeting agenda. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first of all, thanks Ingy for taking notes. Thanks Evans for doing issue triage, and for Robert, Matt, me, and Evans, and I don't know if there was anyone else that did peer review last week, but if I know George did too. Thank you. First announcement is that let's just see if it's actually on right now. No, I know Terry is traveling, but Terry Howe was voted to become a Helm triage maintainer. Big congratulations and also big thanks. Terry's been doing a lot of review over the past year, and a bit before, but like very consistently over the past year, mainly since some of the and even more since updating to ORAS 2.0 v2, because Terry's also an ORAS maintainer, OCA registry as storage project. Any other announcements? Okay. First on the agenda is Ingy had a note about the GoYAML project.
Yeah, so Scott, maybe you could take notes for this since I'll be
talking. Will do.
Yeah, so I think it was 2 days ago, Troy Topnick from SUSE let me know that it was a big discussion within his company that the linked GoYAML /YAML project had been archived on April 1st by Gustavo Niemeyer, the author, and they were wondering what was going to happen with that. I looked more into it with Scott that day, and we looked at Helm, and Helm does use it along with another project. I've looked even more into that project. That project is the most massive YAML project by far. It has 7,000 stars, and also is the basis of the other of the SIG YAML project, even though it's been moved over and forked over. So anyway, it's a really pretty big deal. I decided to fork the project into the YAML organization through GitHub for starters, and then I reached out to I connected with Gustavo on LinkedIn to see if he would connect, and he did pretty quickly. And then I think he's in a European time zone, but I wrote him to say to offer placing that under the YAML organization, and then finding a team to maintain that. And he responded quite positively. So this could be big on several fronts. It could be big for that project, for its derivative projects, for Kubernetes. I know that our Helm usage is light on that particular module, so maybe not so much, but also if it was parked under the YAML org, could be a big reason to get the YAML org funding hosted by CNCF or Linux Foundation or something like that. So it could be a really big deal. I would told Gustavo that I would reach out to you guys and see, because you're my Go programmer friends who know that stuff really well. And I actually worked with Evans yesterday quite a bit on that as well. I think if I could get I told Gustavo I would try to identify a few people from either the Helm team or within SUSE. I'm going to talk to Troy after this, because he said several people were interested in maintaining a fork, and Gustavo was not interested in handing it over, but if he did, he's interested in handing it over to the YAML organization. So anyway, I would like any of you to reach out to me if, or I'll be reaching out to you, at least to George, Evans, Scott, etc. Matt, the people I know that are personally. Anyway, we can have a conversation later about this. I don't want to take up a bunch of time, but I will take any questions people have real quick.
Yeah, I mean, real quick. So Helm's use of this YAML package is in what one spot internally. We can replace that with a Kubernetes one. Then
Right.
there's a indirect dependency, and it appears that we get that from distribution, which is now another CNCF project. So we can probably work with them and see if we can get them to switch over to a different one, such as the Kubernetes one. And there's probably a clean path to migrate away.
Yep.
It won't be immediate, but there's probably
For
a
all of
clean path.
Kubernetes and for all of Go.
Well,
But-
Kubernetes itself already maintains its own YAML parser. So if parts of it are not using that, then they can probably look into it directly. They probably should be doing it. There might be some indirect dependency issues, but this may be.
I looked at that with Ingy, by the way, Matt. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say. Go
the
ahead, Scott.
specifics of it, and I totally exactly in line with what you're saying. It's also Cobra, and they use two different versions, V2 and V3, between. Yeah. So, but I'm just saying we have some details around that already too. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
The
So
heart and soul of the other main one is actually this. It's just a copy of this moved in with code written around it, right? So
Right.
I think the right thing would possibly to do to make a better YAML experience across the board, the most easily would be to work with those people to, instead of copying it, take what, integrate the work that they've
Yeah.
done into that and then depend on it instead of having forks all over the place.
Yeah, and the truth is, I think there's two paths forward. One is we and Helm looking to simplify our own setup here and get off of it. And then there is for this project and how it's handled. And I think it would be great if, because of the number of people using it, if it had a path of maintenance going forward. Finding maintainers might be some of the harder part. Trusted maintainers, in this whole space, because it's injected everywhere. When it gets handed off, trust is going to be one of the big things, because supply chain security attacks, they're real, they're present. And so finding people who will be involved and maintain it, who are considered trusted by the broader community, so people are not worried about supply chain attacks, I think would be a very useful thing.
And one ask I might have here is maybe we leave this alone in Helm for the minute, because this was really interesting. So if you look at the Go mod usage of this, it uses gopackage.in, which is a domain run by Gustavo. So it's actually his thing. And I just asked him, if we can get a plan together in a day or so, can you point without giving the organization on GitHub over, which he wants to see more clarity on, could you actually just have your gopackage.in point to the new one if it showed that we were moving forward on that? Does that make sense? It's like,
yeah, so it's just a redirect to the new location. Yes, it makes sense.
So it would actually, and having it in Helm just for the minute would be maybe beneficial to that conversation. I mean, we can replace it whenever you want, but since we just noticed it and it's not causing any problems, this might be an interesting.
Yeah.
Like Helm is my only interaction with, is my main interaction with the Go community at the moment, right? So.
Yeah. So let's see if we can find trusted devs and people to take it on, who are interested in maintaining this, because from there you can build something around it.
Yep, I agree. That's what I want to do.
I
Great.
think my question, my question for you all would be: would it be better to basically use, I believe it's the unmarshal function, or it's the marshal function, I'll have to look. The one place that Matt just mentioned that this package is even used in Helm directly, would it be, we use those functions everywhere else in Helm except for what is it, the repo package, that one place that it's used? In any case, should we just make that consistent and just deal with address what you're talking about separately outside of Helm? That's the question.
Yeah, eventually, but
that's enough.
Maybe not right now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I think that's where I landed.
And then replace it with the SIGs kates.io/YAML package, you mean? Is that what?
Yeah, and actually, I would like to see that package being used on the YAML fork because it actually copies that code in and ostensibly has made changes to it there. I mean, they have a v1 and v2 directory in that repo. But so yeah,
Cool.
I think let's let this ruminate a bit, and then we'll look at Helm again in a month or two.
I was going
and
to
see
say,
where we're at.
I want to look at the contributors to the Kate's YAML as well and see if any of them
Where's your beard? Sorry. Sorry, I totally say that again, Joe, because I totally freaking out.
I distracted you. Yeah, sorry. I say that's another place to look for interest would be the Kate's YAML package. The maintainers there, see if any of them are interested.
Can you drop the link to that? Just so I.
Isn't that's the one that Scott just posted, I think.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't have my chat up. Great. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so thanks, Ingi. It sounds like we have something. We have something there. There's also that folds into my next bullet point, but I want to keep it real short. And it's more like, since we're bearing things in mind, there is the next discussion item. The next few I added, and I can keep them rather quick. Is that like, do we want to consider, first I wanted to make sure that George was on the call. Oh, he is, okay. But the first thing is, do we want to consider this rather old PR, or for at least a very old issue, to add value options to Helm package? Based on the short intro for that, for me, is based on the different issues that were linked from like the old original issues, and that there are a number of people that want this. They just do weird workarounds for it now. And the fact that we already do allow this general feature in the Helm package command for version and app version, we just don't actually allow changing things like the the containers that are default, to match those. Do we want to consider it? And the main, I think George made one really good point, is that the PR currently uses a totally different way of doing the coalescing to actually update those values. But unfortunately, as of now, it has to, because in order to preserve those comments, our current coalescing can't do that. And so the customize, the sigskates.io customize KYAML package years ago added that ability, and it's used all over the place. The question is, we already do import the KYAML package, we just don't use its merge option. So are we interested in that possibility? Do we want to have big reservations? Yeah.
So what's the value of adding this values thing? Because this is package, right? So
Correct.
when we're talking about installing a package, right? So a package is, think like an operating system, an RPM or Debian package, you're going to install something.
Correct.
And it's one thing to install it or upgrade it. It's a separate thing to take a bunch of stuff and actually generate the package you're going to pass around to places. So the reason for having values in installing or something is because you're able to pass information in. Just like if I go install a Postgres package and it asks me, what do you want the root password to be? I can go input that there. That's the reason for the values at install and upgrade time. At package time, what is the reason, the user story, the user case, to have this, to add in this, extra complexity for this? Because, I mean, you can already edit the values file distinctly because you're turning this into a package. So what's the reason for it, the reason we need this?
The reason for it is automation from people who are main chaining charts without making each change, making each change in Git itself. So for example, you know how a Helm package has flags to update the version and the app version in the chart? The way people do this, that was added for the same use case that you're asking about now. It's when it's ultimately for automation, and people work around it now by using like, so for example, if they don't want to do manual updates to their chart, but they want to have, their testing system, like say Bitnami does all this testing for every single rolling releases and then all the detailed releases, and they do it totally. I mean, I don't really know what their future is with this, but at least they used to do it by basically like generating in CI, copying in pretty much like what people do now is if they want automation to do that, they'll do a sed replace.
Yeah.
And you can do that. You can definitely do that. This just allows you to do that in a way that uses a YAML merge function. That is the only.
Yeah, and the ultimate, it adds a lot of complexity because it's
Yeah.
The YAML parsers and stuff, they to date rip out all the comments, as you said, and so then you've got to bring something in that manages the comments. That adds a bunch of complexity to everything. If you can already do this with sed, is this a value that we want to bring in here as a helper?
Right.
If you can already do it with existing tools.
Yep.
I had a slightly different take on what people were trying to achieve here. My take was that they were just trying to distribute values. So the notion was if they were distributing the chart, then if they stuff new values into the chart, they would also then distribute their values.
Why don't they just distribute it in the values file to begin with? Because the values file is part of the chart.
It's more for
they wanted
dynamic.
to customize the
Yeah.
values that they're distributing. So they'll have like say dev, beta, and prod, and they want to.
But this is
Pre-K,
actually in
beta.
packaging it up, not in installing it, right? So this is when you're
Yes.
packaging up a chart, which is a package you should be able to install that same package in dev, QA, and prod. You should actually have that. I mean, if you're getting into workflows like this, you're stepping outside the normal workflows of a package manager because you're trying to do very custom things. Like I'm building a version of this package for my custom dev environment. I'm building another version of this package for my custom QA environment. I'm
That's
building
right.
another version with my custom. And so then you're stepping out of all of the recommended tooling because we'll say, well, for this, use GitOps or use Helm file or something like this, where you actually keep the configuration separate from the package. Now they want to have custom configuration in different builds of package, which adds complexity for us to carry, and it's outside the normal package manager workflow or the configuration management workflows that we tell people.
Yeah.
Is this complexity we want to carry in Helm and maintain and work on?
Well,
That's exactly what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I think this is bigger. This might require a deeper conversation that we're going to have for today. And if I may interrupt, we're coming up to the end of the time, and we do have I believe someone new, Marcin, who's at the bottom of the list. I want to make sure he's gotten to today if we can.
Yep. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Also, I
Let's
have
go there.
something to say about this. What
Yes,
I was waiting for you guys to hopefully kill it.
Okay, I'll say let's time box this at like 1 minute for you to say what you want to say here, because we're going to pin this and continue regardless. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay.
So I just first to point out, instead of sed, people should be using YQ because it can do merge and it can do stuff and preserve comments, and it works pretty well. The YAML spec, we decided that comments didn't fit into the model, and so we didn't support it. Comments are throwaway. But now realize that comments are really important to people. There's no good way to do it. And about a handful, probably half a dozen projects, YAML loaders and tools have supported preserving comments, and all in a different way. So what I would rather do is, actually come up with a spec of how comments are preserved, and then actually implement that in the Go YAML thing that we're just talking about, and actually roll it out that way as an option. If we were going to do anything in Kubernetes, but I would not move forward on this from the comments point of view. I don't know about all the other stuff that you guys were talking about, so that's just me.
Thanks. Okay, cool. And we'll continue this conversation. Yeah, because I have there's an alternate proposal here that can solve the same use case that Matt asked about, which was what I was hoping to get to. But I'll do that offline. Okay, so. And Robert, I guess the next point is super quick. Can you just maybe just reply to that? We can offline that. I asked a question in the Helm maintainer channel just about one issue. It's a very small detail. The next agenda item about the bug label. You want to offline that one?
Yeah, let's just offline it. We don't have time, and I want to make sure Marcin gets his stuff in here. He's
Thank you.
impatient.
Yes, absolutely.
And Scott, I didn't take notes on that because I thought I'd be involved more in it. So if you want to summarize that at all, that would probably be better than
Great.
me
We'll
trying to summarize it because I
will
didn't
do.
understand it all. Okay.
So why don't we, thanks for noting that several times, Robert. Why don't we go right to Marcin's? I'll move that up, or someone can move that up in the agenda. Do you want to go ahead, Marcin?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks. So I just came here to ask for approval of the PR, which George already reviewed. It's just a simple change to change the API of MapCube APIs plugin to allow passing more mappings than the default ones which are loaded from the file, so that we can use it to work around that issue in our project.
Yeah, I can volunteer to go look at this one.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the code as well. I'll jump in.
Thanks.
Can you drop the link for that?
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
Great. Okay, was that mainly it? Just to highlight?
Yeah, just lagging. Sorry.
No, of course, that's perfect.
But-
Thank you. As I mentioned to you before, like I'm glad that you came, and thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Okay, then going. Oh, okay, going back up slightly, or I guess down to the next one. What do we think about? Two things. Mention this in the Helm Maintainers channel, but we could certainly offline this there if y'all would like to. But the conversation stopped, I guess because everyone got busy. But what do we think about first using one of the bots that's now like pretty widely used to automate the needs rebase label that we already have? Do we have any like big objections to that generally?
Generally, no. I think we do need to be careful of which bots we take in. There have been numerous supply chain attacks recently, and so we need to be careful of what organization we get what pieces of code from, just in order to avoid supply chain attacks.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and of course pin the version and make sure that we vet them when we update it and all of that. Okay, great. Well, in theory, that sounds good. And the second was whether it would be valuable to us to have something like a waiting for author separate from the rebase thing, which can be automated, but whether that's valuable to us for scanning the issues and pull requests. And the reason I ask that is that we have a subset of issues where people just don't get back to us for a long time. And all the other labels make it look as if it's kind of on us to still continue to review them, but they're actually blocked because we need feedback.
So let me ask this. How would the label be removed?
By maintainers scanning that.
So it would still be upon maintainers to remove it. So we can put it on and then they can come back and comment. But if nobody goes by and scans it, then we don't know. And so we're going to have lots of things that probably end up with the label waiting on, author they've responded, but we haven't scanned it yet and sitting there. So the question is, will this actually work?
Correct. And just to finish the question to make sure that I'm not saying I think we absolutely need it. It's like, will it work for us? And the thought here is that we have several hundreds of these pull requests and issues to go through as we do scan things. So we often don't get to them. But if we have a subset of them where we know they're on hold specifically because we're waiting for it for someone, it would be, hopefully anyway, a smaller list to go through. This came up with the question of whether or not we want a stale bot at some point. Again,
the only helpful thing could be if you see the label, you can go to the bottom of the issue a PR, and you could see if the last comment was the author. Sometimes you have to read the whole thing to figure out the context, and then that would be the only case where it'd be helpful. It'd be maybe it would be a small efficiency win, and if the last comment isn't from from the author, then you're probably still waiting.
Yeah,
The problem I see with that though is that if we have these labels that say that they're waiting on the author, and every time we check, the author has not responded yet because they've abandoned their PR, then we're gonna get conditioned to stop looking at the ones that have that label.
The alternative would be we just close the PR after some time period and say please reopen or ask to reopen if you still want to want to contribute. I do think it'd be good to clean up some of our PR backlog. Maybe for a discussion for a different day.
So I'll let you know my plan on this is we've got a massive PR backlog, many of which are going to be closed and not merged at this point. People have abandoned them. Things were not happened in a timely manner. They're not close, or sometimes they don't even fit anymore. And sometimes they don't fit into the scope because a lot of times people come in with ideas for Helm that expand its scope, take it outside of its scope, or just don't work. And my plan here is because we are short on time for Helm v4 to focus just on Helm v4 until we get to the feature freeze point, at which point we'll be asking for feedback and bug fixing and things like that. When we go into that phase, I know I'll have time at that point, and I will switch gears over to trying to clean up the PR backlog, which will involve lots of closing, things like that. Until then, I'm not going to dig through it because we need hands on deck to make changes for Helm v4.
Exactly. This is really, just to be clear, a stopgap idea. Because the main problem with automating stale/closing issues and PRs is that a lot of the reason that they're stale is on us as a maintainers team, having had a pretty long period of not being on top of reviewing as much as we are now. So that's really the only thought there, and we can offline it, but I wanted to raise it. Thanks for the feedback, and that actually sounds like an awesome idea, Matt. Okay, so in terms of, there was one HIP review that someone mentioned that we don't have time for now. I'll bump it to the next one, but we could also offline this too in the meantime. If we don't get to it offline, we can do it in the next one, the next meeting. Do we have any quick shout outs? Just gonna give a few seconds for it. Okay, I'm gonna skip the social media amplification unless, actually, Karen, do you have anything for that?
Sorry, did you say my name?
Yeah, do we have any social media amplification that you wanted to know?
I don't think so for this week.
Okay, maybe we should make one about Terry being a triage maintainer. But
oh yeah, I don't think I've stumbled on their handle. So can you?
Okay.
Yeah, if you could help me get that.
Okay, will do. And okay, thanks, Karen. And who wants to be the moderator next week?
I can for a few weeks.
I can do notes next week.
Okay, Karen, you can do notes. Anyone volunteer to moderate? I think you said you can't for the next couple of weeks, George.
No, sorry, I can moderate next week.
Oh, you can. Okay, great. And then
I've
what
not done it
about
for a few weeks?
Thanks. And then issue triage and yeah.
I can do both. I was a little lacking the last few weeks, but I'll try and contribute some more.
Okay, and PR review?
Yep.
Same.
Yep, I can do some.
Cool. Okay, so can I, and then core maintainers that can be present next week?
Yep.
I can.
Wow.
Joe? Okay. All right, great. We just went 1 minute over. Thanks a bunch, everybody. We'll see you on Slack. See you next week.
That's good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.